Hey, so, how about that analog horror? Am I right? I mean, can we talk about that for a moment? Analog horror. It's taken over YouTube, hasn't it? I mean, you've got the Mandela catalog, you've got any, derivative Five Nights at Freddy's VHS tape, just whatever kind of series going out there. And, you know, let's stop and think about this for a second. Is this not the natural evolution of internet horror media? I think that this is something that a lot of people have observed already. I've seen this on Twitter quite a lot. Yes, I browse Twitter. No, that's not an excuse to dislike about me. But on Twitter, I have seen users mention how analog horror is very similar to a lot of the tropes that are displayed in video game and lost media creepypastas. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what those tropes are, don't worry. I'll give an overview. So, video game creepypastas and lost episode creepypastas are basically internet scary stories about video games and lost media that simply should not exist. These can be warped TV shows of childhood shows that you remember that now don't appear as they should. The most common creepypasta that's referenced in this subgenre is Squidward Suicide, in which an episode of SpongeBob shows a bunch of dead kids and Squidward offing himself. And then with video game creepypastas, it's basically the same thing but in video game format. And some of the tropes that you'll find in this is quote unquote hyperrealism, which is when something looks way too realistic for the program or the hardware that it's on, or there's lots of blood everywhere, characters are acting out of character in a way you wouldn't expect them to. And really, I think we do see a lot of these tropes manifest in analog horror. I mean, just look at the Mandela catalog, and this is something that a lot of people have also observed. It's like, funny face man is 50% of the Mandela catalog. You know, you'll have like a disturbing warped face pop up on the screen. Maybe it has some realistic elements, hence the references to hyperrealism. It's very deformed. It takes something very familiar, like VHS tapes, and it warps it into something weird and creepy, which is similar conceptually to the tropes of lost episode and lost video game creepypasta that I just mentioned. And so, I mean, yeah, this does seem like a continuation and natural evolution of those kinds of horror medias. And really, did we not see this coming? I mean, you look back at Ben Drowned, one of the original video game creepypastas, many people are now realizing that Ben Drowned had a continuation in the form of an ARG, which took the form of an internet video series. And it had very similar stylistic choices to things like the Mandela Catalog or FNAF VHS, where you had really creepy faces, you had disturbing, distorted voices, and I think that those ideas, I think they're popular for a reason. I think that a lot of people find, the warping and twisting and perversion of familiar things. I think a lot of people find that to be disturbing. And I think human beings are naturally attracted to the disturbing. It's something that in our brains doesn't feel right, and out of morbid curiosity, we seek to explore it. So, it's no surprise that these analog series are taking off. And I think it's very interesting to see these tropes explored in a modernized way, where they're no longer being described as words on a page by a protagonist who had an experience that we can't share. Now we can share those experiences because these experiences are visual. They're shown to us instead of just simply told to us. And so many of the tropes that were not as effective in written format are now very scary to a lot of people now that they're visually experiencing them. But that does beg the question, how long can these tropes last without getting oversaturated? I mean, that was the problem with these old style video game and lost media, lost episode style creepypastas, is that these tropes, while novel at first, got oversaturated. They wore out their welcome. And you have to wonder, eventually, does it not make sense that the same thing would happen to these analog horror series? I mean, just look on YouTube, just Google it. I mean, a lot of people are already saying that these tropes are getting done to death. And so you have to wonder, how are these creators of these analog horror series going to adapt? Are they going to investigate new tropes? Are they going to do something different with these tropes? Are they going to who's to say? Are they going to trailblaze and start some tropes of their own? I think it's going to be very interesting to see, and I really want to explore that. I really want to keep up with these series and check out what they're going to do. And honestly, you should be excited. I mean, you really should be, because the creativity of some of these people knows no bounds. You know, again, I'm going to reference it again. Mandela Catalog, made by somebody, I think he's 18 or 19, Alex Kister, literally fresh out of, high school, like, age range, right? Fresh out of that age range, and he's already making this internet phenomena, right? And there are people all over the internet reacting to it, making analysis videos on it. MatPat is making a bunch of theories about it. They have this really deep, interesting lore, something about religion and angels and people disguised as people but are actually aliens or demons, or like there's a bunch of stuff out there that's yet to be discovered, and a bunch of lore and a bunch of story that's yet to be told. And while, yes, we can acknowledge that the voice acting in these kinds of analog horror series aren't the best, they're kind of cheesy. I mean, come on. It's an amateur, project on YouTube. You can't expect, top quality, studio grade material from them, okay? But for what they're doing, relative to what our expectations should be from these amateur projects, I think that it's very impressive. I'm honestly impressed. And again, just to reiterate, I do think in the back of our mind we should try to think of how are they going to take these tropes and prevent them from becoming oversaturated, because truly, if they let them become oversaturated, the analog horror market is going to die out, just like it did with the video game and the Lost Episode and Lost Media creepypasta market. People got tired of reading the same stuff over and over, and naturally, analog horror fans are going to get tired of seeing the same analog horror over and over. So, I mean, I guess we'll just have to see. My prediction for the future is that these creative young minds will find a way to evolve and to grow and to change up the game. So, that's just my quick little rant on analog horror. Let me know what you guys think of analog horror. Let me know what series you recommend. What are your favorites? Do you guys think that I'm right in my prediction? That these people in the game of analog horror are gonna mix it up a little bit and evolve. Let me know what you think below. Thanks for checking out this video. This is Icydice signing out. I'll catch you in the next one.